Hello, music fans. I'm here to talk to you about my top 13 favorite American punk rock albums. And I'm not usually a punk rock listener, I'm more of a progressive metal and progressive rock fan. But I wanted to make this video series about some albums that I love that are in some other genres that maybe some other prog fans would like if they checked it out. So if you're a prog fan and you want to get into punk rock, maybe you'll like some of these. I might just like some of these because they're nostalgic. You'll notice, I think every one on this list except for one is made between the years of 1998 and 2007, between when I was about 8 years old and 17 years old. Um, in the times of teen angst when punk rock is something that is appealing. So this is just American bands. I made another video for my top 13 Canadian punk rock albums. They were probably all roughly in that same time frame as well. So I'm limiting this to two albums per band, and I'm calling this my post 1995 list because I'm sure there are other great American punk rock albums from before 1995. I just don't know as many of them. Um, that kind of time period was when I was aware of and listened to more punk rock, and I still like a lot of it out of nostalgia. But let's jump in with one that's the first one on the list, which isn't nostalgia. It's actually from this year. It's my number 13, and it's by The Offspring. It's called Let the Bad Times Roll. And I guess it's still kind of nostalgia because it's a legacy band that I would have liked during my nostalgic time, but it's a new album from them. And it's really catchy, kind of pop punk. You could imagine this playing on the radio. The song Let the Bad Times Roll, I believe, did play on the radio. Um, and then there's some really catchy songs like We Never Have Sex Anymore, which is a fun song. So yeah, I really enjoyed this album. I was surprised that they're still able to write really catchy songs in their older age. And there will probably be more from The Offspring on the list. In fact, let's jump right into my number 12. It's going to be The Offspring again. And this time the album is Americana from the year 1998. I might have picked Smash from 1994, but that was just before that 1995 cutoff. So I went with Americana, which has songs like Pretty Fly for a White Guy and Why Don't You Get a Job and various other songs. Really, really catchy stuff. You'll notice almost everything on this list is either pop punk. I've got a little bit of ska punk as well, spoiler, and a little bit of the kind of hardcore punk and melodic hardcore. Those are kind of the types of punk that I would listen to that's from the US. I know there's all sorts of different subgenres of punk, just like there are of metal, and I don't know them all that well, but these are kind of the ones that I'm aware of. And we're into my number 11, which will be from a ska punk band called Streetlight Manifesto, and this album's called Somewhere in Between from 2007. So ska punk, you'll hear all sorts of things like saxophones and trombone and trumpet, and they play a lot of the cool melody lines behind the songs. And then it's kind of this like reggae inspired guitar that's all like fast and has the upstrokes on the offbeat and stuff like that. It's basically like really fast reggae with horns, but a punk attitude. That's kind of what this sounds like. Really like the songs We Will Fall Together, Down, Down, Down to Mephisto's Cafe, One Foot on the Gas, One Foot in the Grave. There's a lot of really catchy sing along stuff and gang vocals and that kind of stuff in all these ska punk albums I'm going to mention. I've got three more ska punk albums coming here. The next one's by the same band, Streetlight Manifesto. This is their album Everything Goes Numb from 2003. And this is also really catchy. I really like the song Everything Went Numb. Pretty much the same kind of idea as their other album that I mentioned somewhere in the between. with the horns and the saxophones and the reggae upstroke guitars and fast punk attitude and gang vocals. And then there's another band that I'll mention for my number 9 that sounds almost exactly the same to me in terms of it being a ska punk band. This is Catch 22. This album came a little earlier though. It's 1998, Keasbey Nights. And this has some really catchy songs like Dear Sergio and then the title track Keasbey Nights. But yeah, you could almost like take a song from the Catch 22 album and put it on a Streetlight Manifesto album and vice versa, and you might not even be able to tell the difference because it's really literally that close in terms of how these bands sound to each other. But they're very catchy, very fun. And one more ska punk one, my number 8 is from the year 2000, and it's called Alone in the Crowd, and it's also by Catch 22. Same kind of idea, catchy stuff with horns. Now let's move to something a little different. For my number 7, I've got Paramore with their second album, Riot, from 2007. And this is like pop punk with some emo, power pop kind of vibes to it. This is unique on the list. Paramore is unique on the list in that their singer is Hayley Williams, female singer, so the rest are male singers on this list. And yeah, very catchy stuff. Obviously, this song, Misery Business, I think the Olivia Rodrigo song from this year sounds almost exactly like that. And I think that Paramore ended up getting writing credit on that Olivia Rodrigo song. So it's one of those kind of inspirational albums that inspired future generations to kind of rip it off. And it's just got this, teen angst, Warp Tour kind of feel to it. But really catchy stuff. And then my next one, my number 6, is also going to be Paramore, and it's going to be their debut album, All We Know Is Falling, which I actually like a little bit better than their second album. I find their debut is their best. Really like the song Emergency. Actually, the first 3 songs really open this album up with a bang. All We Know and Pressure and Emergency. The great thing about this is there's actually really cool guitar riffs and guitar parts on here too. So not as much on my US list as there was on my Canada punk rock list. My Canadian punk rock list has a lot more technical guitar playing and guitar riffs, but that was just kind of what I was into in terms of Canadian punk rock. The American punk rock is a little more on the pop punk side and then also the ska punk side. But I do hear some cool guitar riffs in some of these bands. Paramore is one of those that has some cool riffs. Almost some metal and hardcore, metalcore inspiration to some of the riffs too. My number 5 is from Blink-182, and it's their self-titled album from 2003. And this is pop punk again. Has hit songs like Feeling This, I Miss You, Down. I remember when this came out, and back in the music video days, being on Much Music or MTV and these types of things playing there. And yeah, I liked that album when it came out. My number 4, also from Blink-182, their third studio album, Enema of the State from 1999. Similarly pop punk, but this has a little bit more of an old school vibe, like almost like a skate punk. You could imagine these songs being in like Tony Hawk skateboard video game from back in the day. Probably some of these were, I don't actually remember. But songs like All the Small Things, What's My Age Again. Then there's slower songs on here too, sad songs like Adam's Song. They had really catchy guitar riffs too. They weren't hard. Some of them were fast, but they were really kind of simple and easy to play. But they were a pretty inspirational band for people who were kind of learning to play the guitar. And I remember some of their songs were some of the first songs I learned how to play on guitar. Like their song "Damn It" was, which isn't on either of those two albums that I mentioned, but is another good song from them. That's just fun for people learning to play the guitar for the first time, because you don't have to have that much experience to be able to play it. To be able to play it really fast and cleanly, it can take a while for beginners, but pretty easy stuff. Number 3 is from Rise Against. So the first kind of hardcore punk on this list is their album Siren Song of the Counterculture from 2004. This has some great songs on here like Paper Wings, Give It All. Really catchy, but has some hardcore riffs in there, has screaming. I think this is the only band on this list that screams. So Rise Against if you want something a little more on the hardcore punk side. They also sing, it's not all screaming. They mostly sing actually, but they do a lot of screaming on their early albums, and then they kind of got softer as they went on. My number 2 American punk rock album is American Idiot by Green Day from 2004. And what can I say about this? I mean, this was all over the radio. This is like a sensation. They made like a musical out of it, and this is extremely popular. Songs like American Idiot, Jesus of Suburbia, Holiday, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Wake Me Up When September Ends, they were all over the radio at the time. It almost got sickening. I got sick of it at the time when it came out because it was just so popular and it was played all the time. It kind of got annoying, but it is undeniable. Like I can, now that I've had a bit of a break for it, the radio doesn't play it all the time and I don't listen to it as much anymore. If I do listen to it again, I can recognize, it is kind of a masterpiece. It's like a rock opera as well. It is pop punk, but it's also kind of a rock opera and a concept album. So I do think that Prog fans could actually appreciate this. They listen to it. Obviously, it's not like crazy in terms of time signature changes, but there are songs like atypical song structures on here. It's not like your typical pop punk where it's all verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, or that kind of structure. There's songs that are like suites. There's 2 songs on here that are over 9 minutes long that are broken into 5 parts that are kind of like how that side 2 of Abbey Road, like one song kind of flows into the next. They're kind of these songs that get chained, and it's like they chain 5 2-minute songs to make a 10-minute song. So that's pretty cool. And my number 1 punk rock album from an American band is from Rise Against, and the album is called The Sufferer and the Witness from 2006. It's melodic hardcore. It has great catchy songs like Ready to Fall, Prayer of the Refugee, which I think was in like Guitar Hero or Rock Band or something, where I discovered a lot of good music, although I did know about Rise Against before that. Yeah, this is a great album as well. So that's it for my recommendations for my top 13 US punk rock albums. If you're interested in my Canadian picks, check out that Canadian punk rock video. I don't think I'll be making any for other countries because I don't really know enough punk rock from other countries. But up next, maybe some mathcore, maybe some black metal, some other genres besides prog metal and prog rock, which I always listen to and always think about and talk about and make lists about. I'm trying to spotlight some other genres here. So let me know if there's other genres you want me to check out, and I might make some lists for those. Until next time, peace out.